Oh my God, he's such a loser.
What's up, losers, and welcome back to another episode of the Popular Loser Podcast, where it's okay not to fit in. I'm your host, KD, and I know I ain't said that in probably about a year, and I'm sorry about it. For anybody that's been checking the page and wondering where the content has been, to like go over everything that transpired from the last time I made a pod. As y'all know, my boy Kinda White Guy was on my last pod when I told him about me doing a journalism thing, and I ended up moving to Illinois. So kind of today is just going to be to catch y'all up on that, and then just to also tell y'all where the space is going to go from here. So to start back with the job, I initially went out to Illinois back last August, and that was probably the biggest life-changing experience I've ever had in my life, honestly, man. Like being able to be a journalist and, you know, an everyday job aspect was huge for like just the development of like my career, the development of even this, honestly, everything to go within this journalism space. It was like really a big boost of an upgrade and letting me know where I was in the space. And so I moved out to Illinois, let's say maybe like August 9th or something like that. And when I got out there, I ended up moving in my apartment, which is also the very first thing for me, too. Never lived on my own outside of, like, going to college. But I had never lived on my own before that time. And so that was liberating in itself, you know what I'm saying, to be able to live on your own and to be able to kind of, like, just experience life on your own and really have your own real perspective rather than, like, you know, kind of living with other people or, you know, just everything. But it's nothing wrong with living with your parents also at 25. I got to put that out there. Life is too expensive nowadays. I was just able to find a good space and a good place where I ended up working. I'm kind of sweating a little bit, man. So going from when I got my apartment, right, I had a thing like the first night I was there by myself. I don't know if any of y'all noticed the show Grownish. But that's like my favorite show person. I love the show Grownish. And it got a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? It has a little more meaning to me than it just being a show because it came out in 2018. I was still playing football at that time, still in college. And going from there to like living the lyrics of the song is like the first lyric is Watch Out World, I'm Grown Now. And to feel that on my own to like now I've got my own place. I'm now finally in an apartment by myself and like I'm also within my career field, which is so many people went to school for $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 and never even got, you know, to ever be in their field. So it was like just a feeling of accomplishment. I don't feel like I've ever felt a level of that like accomplishment within my life. And that's why for the people who know the video I'm talking about, when I held the newspaper up to my face, to be able to see my face in like a newspaper, man, that was like the greatest thing in the world. Like that was just like the first step to what I feel like the guy that I look up to the most, which is Stephen A. Smith. Like I feel like that was like my first step of becoming, you know, it's like in the footsteps of him and following like in the footsteps that he's into. And so once I started the job, I kind of came along really slow. They kind of, you know, brought me along pretty slow paced. And as the weeks went on, you know, I just learned more about football and learning about the space. I went to a lot of volleyball stuff, a lot of golf, hated golf, but ended up liking golf. Golf is a very interesting sport. I don't think to stand around and watch it, though, it's an interesting sport. I think certain players are interesting to watch, is what I learned about golf. And golf is it's just very slow paced, very, very slow paced. But number one, I want to give a shout out to the Southern for even giving me an opportunity. I was the only minority there. Which was like another big thing of like people that look at jobs and like, oh, I'm black, so I possibly can't get it. Like I was the only minority that worked at my job, the only one. So for anybody that's black and like trying to go into a space like a journalism or, you know, certain other fields that feel like, being black may hold you back. I was in a very white town at that, being the only black reporter on a all white newspaper, basically. So, just don't let your color kind of like slow you down in the sense of like what you want to do. That's like a really big thing that I learned myself, was like, just don't let that be the thing that's going to hinder you. But to get more back into the job, man, it was lovely because every day was a different adventure. And I think that's what I like about journalism the most, is every day truly is a different adventure. Every day you're going to do something different, whether that's covering a football game, whether that's talking to a kid about something that happened in their lifetime. A big thing that I would say, probably the biggest story or like biggest impact story I would say I had, was maybe this girl that was from Italy. Her name was Lisa Tomasi. She was like a dog at tennis. She beat one of the highest players, like in that specific area of Carbondale. She beat one of the best players in that place who hadn't lost at home in 3 years. So just imagine, you haven't lost in 3 years, and now one girl from another country like comes and gives you your first L at home. That's how good this girl was. And just to interview her, she had another person that was also speaking with us, the people she was living with. Like, to do that story was pretty dope. And to also just to be able to like cover high school sports, like to understand some kids have never spoken to media and they don't know how to speak to media. So when you ask them a question, they go, because they don't really even know what to say because they're not media trained. Also, being media trained is a whole nother thing. Certain kids are media trained. They're going to attack certain answers in a very team-oriented way. And so if you ask them something like, you had this big performance. What do you feel like made y'all had this big performance? He's not going to say just him most of the time, or that person is not going to say them. They're most of the time going to go with the team aspect. I got maybe like one or two comments that was like very, oh yeah, I think I'm just a dog, blah, 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 that type of stuff. Like, but that's a very rare, and I didn't think that. I would think it would be more cockier players within the high school region, but it wasn't. So just going back to the job and what my everyday duties were, I would either have maybe like 4 to 5 live games a week. I would have what they call, I'm blanking on the word, a column. It's a weekly column. That's when I kind of can have like the most creativity. I said creativity. So that's what I meant to say. But that's when I could have like the most creativity on my own, and when I can talk about things myself. Like I wrote one that was, this is probably the one that I like the most. It was called The Art of Interviewing. And it's really just telling you like how you really got to ask questions in different ways, because you can't expect everybody to give you a great answer. Everybody isn't a great talker. And like, that's something you really understand. And that's, I think, also going to help me within podcasting as well. Having to always ask questions so often, always having to think of like different things on the fly. So I'm not asking the same questions on such a consistent basis. All of those things were really big on becoming a better sports journalist. And with me being there and just being able to do all of these different things and be able to experience so many different sports, it was able to help out my career in such a big way. Also, while I was there, within every place that you're going to move, right, you're going to find a love life. At that time, I did find a love life with a certain young lady. I'm not going to mention her name because I feel like that would be not the authentic thing to do. But dealing with her and having her around it really kind of made my time within Carbondale, honestly, even better. And when she came around, she kind of gave me a different perspective on how to go into like the dating scene, because I feel like social media makes so many of us think about dating in like such a negative light. And I really hate that it's everywhere. Like every time you click on social media, it's a person telling you what you should be doing as a man, what you should be doing as a woman, how you should be dating, why you should be dating, the amount of money you should be giving, this, that, the third, blah, 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 blah. It's just so many different things in the dating scene that I feel like some people may not even go through, but they see that social media tells them this is how the dating scene is. And I feel like within that, a lot of people maybe subdue to that and they believe it themselves. And they've maybe not even met a person that's like that said stereotype. And just dealing with this young lady, like it just really like allowed me to change my dating aspect on like how I look at the dating scene. And, I really thank her for that. And we ended on really good terms. We wasn't going to be able to make it work with what I'm going to eventually tell y'all what happened with the job, with me also coming back home, now living back in Michigan. That was a really big reason of why we ended up having to break off what we had going. And, I just thank you for that. But back to the job. So time is going on. I'm getting better at writing. I'm getting more consistent. I'm going to a lot of different sporting events. I'm covering a lot of different stuff. And I'm absolutely loving this job, by the way. Absolutely loving it. Never had a job that I loved more than this. The Southern Illinoisan was definitely the best job I've ever had. And so I had kind of got word in the interview process that it could happen, right? But I asked them realistically, do y'all think within a year that this is going to be, that I'm still going to be here? And they told me within a year, I would for sure believe so. But this was also another big thing they told me. And this is one thing I really respected about the Southern, was they told me very straight up that it's your choice. Either you could come or, and get this experience, or you could say it's a possibility that it's going to sell. I'm not going to take that risk. Obviously, I took the risk because, as they say in life, you got to take chances to get to where you want to in life. And that's what I did, because this is the first time I could have this at such a full-time position. And with me being able to get within a space, as I said, a big thing that I knew was that it could possibly sell. But you don't know at what point. And that's what gets you to chance it, is because you don't know what point that happens. Because what if that doesn't happen for 2.5 years? Is that the risk that you're willing to take, that doesn't happen for 2.5 years? Now, obviously, in my position, it happened at a much quicker rate, but that's the chance that you take. So approaching into October, which is crazy, right? Because I just got there in August. This is like the changing of like how life was starting to go. So approaching October was when they like kind of started to introduce it. And some time went past, I'm still doing my job. And November came, or either the end of October. I can't remember the exact date, but it was a time within October to November that they made a date and they said, all right, this is going to be our last day. Actually, it was right around Thanksgiving, because I came home for Thanksgiving. And so just dealing with knowing that like my job was basically over at Thanksgiving. When I came home for Thanksgiving, that really just kind of put me in like a bad space. And it's so easy to pretend like life is going like great when it's not. And that was kind of like the first step of me realizing like life wasn't going to go as great. And so I come back home, we work for maybe like another 2-3 weeks. And I think it was like December 12th, maybe the date was. That was the last day of employment. And I remember when we had a conversation about it. And I hope I don't get emotional on here, because this is like a very emotional thing to me, because this like really kind of changed my entire life, if I'm just being honest. Like it changed where I lived, it changed everything. But we had a conversation through Zoom, me and all of the other Southern workers. It was 13 of us. And one of our managers was just talking about it, and I kind of interrupted him, and I was like, so are you saying all of us are about to like not have a job? And he said yes. And I can't think of a sadder moment in my personal life of like that hitting you, and you realizing this is real. Like you left home to come here. You left home to come here, and this is real. Like you have to deal with this. This is not like a fake thing. And when I found that out, man, that was probably like the start of like the worst week in my like personal life. And just dealing with all of those emotions of like realizing that the career job that I kind of chose has now ended and I won't be here anymore. Like it made me realize like, number one, I'm in a place I don't want to live. And I knew that before I went there, but it obviously, like I said, you got to take chances. You got to take risk. That's what you got to do. But that was the number one thing. I'm in a place I don't want to live anymore. And that, I think, was the hardest part about losing a job was I'm now in a place where I don't want to be anymore. And that was a really hard thing to deal with just on an everyday basis. And, shout out to the Southern. I can't speak about too much of it, but shout out to the Southern. They gave us some money on our leave out. So, shouts out to y'all for being able to make sure that we could survive for some time. I ended up, the company that they sold it to was a company called Paxton Media. I really wanted to work for them as their sports reporter, but they already had a sports reporter coming in with them on the hire. So I ended up working for them part-time and going from full-time money to part-time money or going to case-by-case money. Not the same thing. People still got rent. People still got a car note. People still got car insurance. Plus whatever else you got in your life. Right? Now, obviously, I don't have a child. Thank God that I don't, though. Because if I was to have went through that with a child, that's why you be smart. So, dealing with the fact that I now had to find another job because I knew that my job was ending. And just dealing with the process of having to think of myself through this everyday process of like how life is, right? That was I would say is probably the most difficult part. Like I just had to think about where is life gonna go, and it's really hard to do that in the journalism space. With people that don't really know about journalism too much and like how the jobs move, it's very fast paced, very very fast paced. So you can apply for a job. You one out of 150 people that's applying for one job. And you know how many different people within that space probably have more experience than you, probably have been writing longer than you, probably have been on TV longer than you, whatever the case may be, or they just have more personality than you, whatever that thing is. So, having to now go through like having to find another job was a very difficult. And at being 25 and like I said, I moved out and kind of, did everything on my own. Like everything was now KD. And that was it was really nerve-wracking to go through. And so I ended up coming up on a car salesman job. Car salesman was not my thing. I learned that very fast. And to tease kind of what the podcast is going to go about now, it's going to be more about people understanding you don't know what a real job goes through at all until you enter that field. So to tell you about being a car salesman, personally, I can say I hated it just because the duties of that job is very different than any job you've ever had. You have a lot of space when you're not in front of a customer. And when you're not in front of a customer, it's very hard to get customers to be in front of you. So what you have to do so consistently is just go out of your way to like contact people over and over and over until you get a person to come in to sit in front of you. And that's not a very easy thing, if I'm just being totally honest. It's not very easy at all because it's really like You got to add value to why they want to come in. And I think that was the part I never understood, was adding value to why you should come in. Because at the end of the day, you know you want to buy a car. So what do I really need to convince you for? You know? And it was just certain practices, you know, and this is not to say anything bad about the people who work there or anything that, like, obviously they're selling cars. They're a good, reliable company. So it's never to talk down about them, but just me being the person I am. I got blocked one day from a lady, and my manager told me, good job. And that really, like, kind of offended me because I didn't know how to feel about that. But I understood what he meant. It wasn't the fact that I got blocked of what he was saying good job to. It was more the fact that I was doing my job in order to contact enough for a person to do it. And then I went around the office and I asked people, several people, have you ever gotten blocked before? And, like, you know, is this a thing that's happened? And numerous of them had said yes. So this is not like a non-normal thing. Your average car salesman possibly has gotten blocked on numerous occasions. And it was just, I couldn't figure out the salesman thing. It was just so hard to truly figure out all of it. It was extremely hard. And I just knew I wasn't going to be able to do that job. And so now the area I was living in was called Carbondale, Illinois. Carbondale, Illinois was a dying city. It had a lot of places that had been a business at one specific point that was not a business anymore. They had a mall, but that mall maybe had now about 7 jobs in it, or like 7 different places, not to say jobs, but 7 different places. So that's just to tell you the type of area that I personally lived in. So it wasn't a very good income area. So now I feel like I'm kind of getting to the place where it's like, I don't like this car salesman thing. On top of me not liking the car salesman thing, what else am I going to do out here if it's not journalism? Because remember, I left the Metro Detroit area to go to Illinois. And so it was just like, all right, what's now going to happen? And I had to, like, fully think about everything and where everything was going. And so I just decided to come back home to kind of restart and see if I can find another journalism space. And if I can't, what can I do to start my own thing to make it back there? And also with the break of podcasting and me not being here for a year and me not putting out content for a year, you know, I've had multiple people ask me where the content is. And, you know, to those people who actually, you know, are checking for the pod, I truly respect it. And I'm going to try to be more consistent, especially if I'm being here in Michigan. Even if I get another job, I'm going to really try to make it a big effort to be more in the podcasting space. And to now, the last thing, talk about what the pod is going to kind of be about. I'm not going to say this is going to be every single episode because I still want to do certain aspects of what I was doing previously in podcasting. But what I will say is, with me being in like 3 different career jobs today, I mean, within the last year, you know, being a reporter for 5-6 months, being a car salesman for 2-3 months, and then also being an assistant teacher. Being all 3 of those has made me be in 3 total different career choices. And me understanding now, you don't know what a teacher go through. You don't know what a car salesman go through. And you really don't know what a reporter go through because you just see some 2-minute video. You don't know how long that 2-minute video went. You don't know how long it took them to write these articles. You don't know, like, you know, all of the different things that go into every day of this job thing. And there's so many people going to college and so many people that don't, you know exactly what they want to do, and they're wasting thousands and thousands of dollars of going to something they're going to school for and maybe not want to do. Me realizing that journalism is such a tough field made me realize that you don't know what you're going into. And why not be the person who can bring that to you? So everybody got a job that they want to do. So my new thing now is going to be kind of bringing a person on to do a day of the life. I think now bringing that to y'all would make for great content and, kind of let some people know, what is a nurse really going through? What is a teacher going through? What is a plumber going through? What is a principal going through? These are all jobs you don't know anything about. Like, I don't know what a plumber does day to day, if I'm just like truly being honest, but I'm going to try to find a plumber so you can know what a plumber goes through, so you can know if plumbing can be something that you want to maybe go into. And so that's the story of the last, 12 months, basically. So I'm sorry for the break in podcasting, man. I'm going to try to be back as much as I can. And, spell that loser with a $. Popular Loser Podcast, spell that S with a $. And loser out.